always wanted a simple wedding, free from drama and overflowing with genuine support. Yet my biggest hurdle turned out to be my own mother. When Caleb proposed after 3 years of dating, I was elated. We set the date for a year later, hoping to make it a relaxed, joyous occasion. My older sister, Kendra, had recently been left at the altar, and I felt sorry for her heartbreak, but I didn't believe I should sacrifice my future until she recovered. Kendra's meltdown became the central topic of our family's conversations. 2 days before her wedding, her groom admitted he still had feelings for an ex-girlfriend. That confession destroyed the ceremony, along with Kendra's dreams. She shut herself in her apartment, crying for days on end. Our mother hovered over her like a guardian, bringing comfort food and chasing away anyone who mentioned relationships. I sympathized deeply, even dedicating several evenings to just sitting with her as she sobbed. But there was only so much I could do. I had my own life to manage, my job, my relationship, my future. When I got engaged, Kendra tried to smile for me, though I saw the hesitation in her eyes. I gave her space, hoping she'd warm up. Instead, our mother blindsided me, demanding I postpone or cancel my plans to spare Kendra's feelings. Mom insisted my wedding date was an insult to my sister's suffering, as if I was flaunting my happiness in her face. I told her I wasn't trying to rub anything in. I simply loved Caleb and wanted to celebrate our union. She refused to listen, repeating that it would be the right thing to do. It was baffling to me that she thought punishing me would help Kendra heal. I vented to Caleb, who was shocked at my mother's stance. He assured me we shouldn't give in to such manipulation. I hoped Mom would come around if she saw how important this was to me. Instead, she doubled down, pressing me to either elope secretly or wait as long as it took for Kendra to find closure. It was absurd to pin my sister's well-being on my decisions. My mother seemed convinced that if I had a public ceremony, it would shatter Kendra's emotional stability. Mom then enlisted our aunts to guilt-trip me. They called me selfish, scolding me for failing to protect Kendra from emotional pain. I tried explaining that canceling my wedding wouldn't magically fix her heartbreak, but they didn't care. They wanted compliance. Our family's dynamic had often revolved around Kendra, who was used to being indulged. Mom had always been her fierce protector, but now it reached a new extreme. It felt like I was meant to pay for her ex's betrayal. Over time, Kendra herself turned distant. Whenever I visited, she would barely acknowledge me. I understood her grief, but her coldness stung. Meanwhile, Mom kept making pointed remarks about how I should consider my sister's mental health before planning any festivities. Finally, I invited them both formally, hoping to bridge our divide. Mom responded by saying she wouldn't support my cruelty. Kendra, too, seemed to believe I was betraying her by going ahead with my wedding, though she never said it directly to my face. A month before the ceremony, I learned Mom had lied to extended relatives, telling them I'd agreed to call off the event. Confused cousins started calling for clarity, so I explained the truth. Mom demanded I cancel, and I refused. Opinions were split. Some understood, others called me uncaring. Then, the florist called about a supposed cancellation. Someone pretending to be me insisted all orders be voided. Furious and hurt, I realized either Mom or Kendra had crossed a significant boundary. Thankfully, the florist reinstated my request after confirming with me directly, but the damage to my trust was done. I confronted Mom, who feigned ignorance, and I warned her that if she kept interfering, I would remove her from the guest list entirely. She rolled her eyes and insisted I'd regret turning my back on family. That was the day I decided I wasn't just going to stand by. I called my wedding planner, switched venues, and kept the new location secret. I shared it only with people I trusted. Mom, Dad, and Kendra were excluded to protect myself from further sabotage. My father tried to argue that he wasn't involved, but he'd stood by without defending me, which felt like enabling her. Removing them caused an uproar. Mom and Kendra bombarded me with texts, calling me heartless for tearing the family apart. They assumed I'd cave eventually, but they underestimated how determined I was. Caleb supported me fully and helped me stay calm while finalizing the arrangements. On the morning of my wedding, I was torn between relief at having a sabotage-free day and sadness that my family chose to be the source of chaos. My maid of honor reminded me this was about my love for Caleb, not their drama. The ceremony took place in a small garden behind a historic inn. Around 50 friends, supportive cousins, and close coworkers attended. As I walked down the aisle, I felt a wave of gratitude that we'd persevered. Halfway through the reception, I noticed movement at the entrance. Mom and Kendra had shown up uninvited. They tried to push past security, yelling that they were my family and deserved to be there. I approached, keeping my composure, and calmly told them they had crossed every boundary. They'd sabotaged my wedding planning from day one, and I owed them nothing. Mom got red-faced, calling me a disgraceful daughter. Security escorted them off the premises. Though my heart pounded, I refused to let them ruin the celebration. My guests gathered around to show support, and we carried on. The very next day, Mom posted a furious rant on social media, painting me as an ungrateful daughter who reveled in Kendra's misery. She left out the part where they impersonated me to cancel florist orders. Some relatives sided with her until I posted screenshots of her own messages. She deleted her post in humiliation. Caleb and I went on our honeymoon, turning off our phones entirely to escape the drama. We returned to an email from Mom claiming she wanted peace. Yet, in the message, she blamed me for Kendra's pain and insisted I should have postponed my wedding. She ignored the sabotage. It was clear she had no interest in genuine reconciliation. My father tried to set up a family meeting, saying both sides had made mistakes. I refused. I had done nothing except go forward with my plans. A few weeks later, I noticed suspicious charges on my bank statement. The bank traced them to Kendra's IP address. She'd stolen my card details and used them for online purchases. I confronted her, and she started crying, saying she was desperate. Mom asked me to be compassionate, but I threatened to press charges. Kendra repaid most of it, calling me cruel for even considering legal action. At that point, I felt nothing for her tears. I gathered every shred of evidence, texts, recordings, screenshots of canceled orders, and proof of Kendra's theft. I posted a comprehensive timeline on a private page for close relatives who were confused about the situation. Many apologized to me, realizing the extent of Mom and Kendra's actions. Some cut ties with them entirely. My father tried once more to tell me we could move past it, but I was done. Caleb and I changed our phone numbers, blocked them everywhere, and eventually moved. Life began to feel peaceful, free of their constant interference. Months later, a letter with no return address arrived, but the handwriting was obviously Mom's. She wrote that Kendra had found a new partner and planned a small ceremony, urging me to forgive and attend. She acted like I should be the bigger person. I just tossed the letter. I found out later Kendra did get married in a courthouse. They never apologized. They only regretted losing the chance to control my life. Sometimes people claim I should forgive and forget. I'm not consumed by anger. I just refuse to allow toxic people back in. My wedding day turned out beautiful despite them. I treasure those memories. Mom and Kendra wanted me to cancel everything so my sister wouldn't feel worse about her own failed ceremony. Instead, I cut them out and never looked back. I'm free of the deception. The moment I saw them at my reception demanding entry, I knew I'd made the right choice. I refused to forgive such blatant betrayal. Exposing their actions was the only way to reclaim my narrative. They lost their credibility while I salvaged my wedding. Some say this is harsh, but there's a limit to what family can expect when they cross boundaries so recklessly. My mother and sister acted as though I was heartless for celebrating my marriage when Kendra was still grieving. But nothing excused impersonating me, sabotaging my orders, or stealing my money. Their continuous schemes forced me to protect my sanity and happiness. Caleb has been my rock through it all, and we've built a peaceful life together. I used to think family bonds were sacred and unbreakable. Yet betrayal like this can't just be swept under the rug. They wanted me to give up my joy for Kendra's sake, as though her heartbreak gave her a free pass to ruin my day. When I refused, they escalated into lies and theft. I won't pretend any of that was acceptable. If they see me as cold, so be it. I'd rather be called cold than let them destroy my peace. We've been thriving without their drama. I don't regret a single choice I made. They demanded I cancel my wedding, so instead, I canceled them. Now I live without fear of sabotage or manipulative guilt trips. That, to me, is real freedom. I always wanted a simple wedding, free from hostility. My mother turned it into a battlefield when she chose to make Kendra's heartbreak my responsibility. Standing up for myself was the hardest yet most liberating move I've ever made. I'm relieved I didn't back down. Family might be important, but not when they undermine your happiness at every turn. Kendra, for her part, never once took ownership of her actions. She acted as if being left at the altar justified any behavior toward me. Mom supported that mindset wholeheartedly, equating my refusal to cancel with cruelty. But they conveniently ignored that my wedding wasn't a personal attack. It was simply me wanting to marry the man I love. People sometimes wonder if I feel lonely without my family. In truth, I feel less lonely than ever. I've learned the difference between real support and forced obligation. The relatives and friends who saw me through this are my true family now. They showed me that love doesn't come with strings or sabotage attempts. I won't lie, I sometimes recall the painful moments. I remember the calls from vendors saying I'd canceled orders, the condemnation from extended family, and the heartbreak of realizing my mother wanted to wreck my wedding rather than see me happy. But I used that memory to fortify my boundaries. Forgiveness isn't always mandatory. In some cases, it's a betrayal of self. Looking back, I see the red flags I ignored for years. Mom always preferred Kendra, always defended her. I just never expected them to go this far. I never thought the people closest to me would stoop to impersonating me or hacking my finances. It taught me a harsh lesson. Family can be toxic, and you must stand up for yourself when they cross the line. I've been asked if there's a chance for reconciliation. I doubt it. Their apologies are full of blame shifting and excuses. They see me as the bad guy for refusing to cave. That mindset won't change unless they own up to everything, which they haven't. I don't need them to validate my choices. I know I did the right thing. Sometimes I replay the sight of Mom and Kendra at the reception, thinking they could just bully their way in. It reminds me how crucial it was to exclude them. Had I let them attend, they would have caused a scene from the start. Instead, they had to stand outside, literally and metaphorically, because that's where their behavior landed them. My genuine loved ones danced with me, toasted to our union, and reminded me that not everyone in my life was out to sabotage me. By the time we ended the night, I felt more sure than ever that I'd done the right thing. They demanded I postpone or cancel my wedding. I chose not to let their bitterness define my future. I'll never forget the depth of that betrayal. Kendra's heartbreak didn't give her the right to ruin my plans, and my mother's favoritism didn't justify her manipulations. I refused to become their scapegoat. I'll keep living on my terms, celebrating milestones without looking over my shoulder. My wedding was a perfect illustration of what happens when you set boundaries. The toxic people can't handle it, but you find peace in knowing you stood firm. Despite everything, I'm proud of how I handled it. Sure, I lost a chunk of my family, but I kept my integrity. That's a trade I'm willing to make. My mother and sister can call me whatever they want. I know the truth. They tried to sabotage me, and I wouldn't allow it. I'm free of their manipulations, and that feels incredible. I've learned you don't have to accept people's behavior just because they're family. Betrayal has consequences. If they can't respect your happiness, they don't deserve to share in it. Cutting them off was a logical response, not an act of cruelty. Forgiveness might be noble, but self-preservation takes priority when someone repeatedly attacks your well-being. Sometimes I think about how life would be if they'd just let me have my day. We could have celebrated together, maybe even grown closer. Instead, they revealed how far they were willing to go to appease Kendra's emotions. That was their choice, not mine. In the end, I'm the one who walked away unbroken. My father remained complicit by doing nothing. He thought letting Mom lead was safer than challenging her. But standing by silently is still a choice. He lost his spot at the wedding too, because I no longer trusted him to protect my interests. It hurts to sever ties, but the alternative was to keep giving them space to harm me. I'm no longer weighed down by their opinions or demands. Caleb and I celebrate each other, knowing we survived a storm that could have torn us apart. We grew stronger by facing it together. Our wedding photos are filled with genuine smiles, not forced ones. That day felt pure because I had removed the people who wished me harm. I'll never forget the intensity of that betrayal, nor will I forgive it. My revenge was ensuring they didn't succeed in ruining my wedding, exposing their manipulations, and severing all ties. Truly free. The best part is that I proved to myself I have the strength to stand up for what matters, even if it means losing people who once were central figures. People sometimes assume family bonds are unbreakable, but nothing is unbreakable when betrayal cuts this deep. My mother and sister crossed a line that can't be repaired with hollow apologies. They demanded I throw away my joy for the sake of Kendra's feelings, and when I wouldn't, they escalated into sabotage and theft. I won't let them rewrite history. I won't let them in. At this point, I don't care if they view me as the villain. Let them. I'd rather be the villain in their story than the doormat in mine. I've built a new reality with people who respect me. I refuse to let betrayal slide simply because we share DNA. That's not bitterness, it's self-preservation. If that means permanent estrangement, so be it. Caleb and I are thriving, our relationship stronger than ever. I don't regret a thing. They wanted me to cancel my wedding. Instead, I canceled them, and I stand by that decision without apology. This is my life, my marriage, and my happiness. They have no place in it, and that's exactly how I plan to keep it.